really find the divine in water.
And the woods is where I find the divine for me. It's a great place to just connect.
I see him in my wife. My wife shows me a lot of God through her actions. So
watching a gorgeous sunset.
I see a lot of it in nature. I do a lot of walking.
When people are at their best, I see divine in the world, yeah.
Yeah, like my grandma, I can see it in her.
I guess I find more divinity in nature than I do in anything else.
Hi, and welcome to In Search of the Divine. I'm Ann Thompson. You might think I'm just standing in the middle of a bunch of rocks, and I am. But these rocks are called a labyrinth, and they're part of an ancient form of prayer, and you'll hear more about that in a little bit. Today we're also going to be talking about dogs and how they're used for pet therapy. One woman who uses clowning as a form of healing. And finally, we'll talk about daily prayer rituals. So come on along, journey with us. All around the world, every day, every moment, people are engaged in prayer. It's a global conversation. Today, we look at Christian and Muslim prayer rituals that follow the clock.
We do the Liturgy of the Hours, and we do that because one of the most important things to Benedict was that we mark time. We use time. We seek the Lord in time. And sometimes I think we don't realize that perhaps one of the greatest gifts that God has given us is the gift of time.
Called Salat. Salat is the form of worship. It was taught to Muhammad, the prophet of Islam, by God, of how to formally pray in this particular way. And it's interesting because nowhere in the Quran does it tell us, you know, all the detailed steps of prayer. But we learn this from his tradition and how he would offer the prayer.
The Christian ritual is based on tradition and the hours of the day.
7 hours a day, and the Psalms say that. 7 hours a day we rise to praise the Lord. It started with sunrise, and that was lauds, and that's a prayer of thanks to God that you are alive. You still have given another day to praise the Lord. They would eat the meal that they had, and then before they went out to work, it was prime. It's the first hour of the day. And then at 9 o'clock is tears, third hour. Sext, sixth hour. And noon, ninth hour. And they were 3 hours apart, you see. And then there was the Compline.
The Muslim ritual is also based on tradition and the hours of the day.
In Islam, you know, the concept is, God says that never is there even a thin curtain, if you will, separating the worshiper and his or her Lord. They're the call to prayer, which is the adhan. You have the Fajr prayer, which is the prayer that happens before the sun rises. And you have the Dhuhr prayer that happens over the noon hour, or just after noon. You have the Asr prayer, which is the mid-afternoon prayer. And then you have Maghrib prayer, which is when the sun sets, after the sun has set. And then Isha is at night, when the light dissipates from the sky.
Both traditions incorporate sacred texts.
And the basic elements in the Liturgy of the Hours is scriptural. The Liturgy of the Hours, then, is made up of Psalms primarily, and then what we call antiphons. That's sort of a little introduction to the prayer of the day, or in some cases the prayer of the psalm that you're going to read. And even those are scripturally oriented. And then we say the Lord's Prayer, always. And let's see, that's about it.
Which is general practice, where we try to have the prayers in the evening, in the late night, where we recite 1/30th of the Quran per night, with the understanding that throughout the month we will complete the whole entire Quran. That includes the the standing, the bowing, and the prostrating of Muslims.
Both traditions are an invitation to reflect on God's presence.
We pray thoughtfully or reflectively, however, but you know what? It grows on you. You know, I've been in community and praying for 60-some years. And what you don't notice, but it happens to you, it shapes you and it forms you. And you become more conscious of God's presence in your life.
Actually, we're always in there, but more purposeful, more meaning in that particular time.
So whether it's the Liturgy of the Hours or Salah, I guess you could say that prayer is as constant as time. Dave and his Samoyed dog Sasha, and Becky and her Lhasa Apso dog Zoey visit the sick and dying in hospitals, clinics, care facilities, and homes, and their stories about the power of unconditional love are almost endless.
Last week, visited a boy in the hospital that was having his appendix out, autistic young man, and his mother knew that he said a few words, but the hospital didn't know he talked at all. Went in, saw my dog, looked at the dog, said dog, came over and pet Sasha a couple times, and all of a sudden in his beautiful clear voice started singing a kid's song about a dog, and everybody was very taken back by that.
Zoey and I visited a lady that was in the orthopedic area, and we had just a wonderful visit with her. She was very excited about Zoey. And about a month and a half to 2 months later, we ended up coming back for another visit. Here she was in the bed. They had just removed her life support that morning. And I looked over at her, and here this lady was laying on her side with a little stuffed dog right under her arm that was just like Zoey. She told everybody that came to visit her after that about this little dog that came to see her named Zoey. And so somebody went out and bought her a little dog, and it looked just like Zoey. And she kept that little dog with her as she went through rehab, and she died later that evening.
We have worked with people that were in basically a coma, and you know, like one boy I remember well that his parents claimed the first time he moved his hand was when he touched Sasha. The first time he reached out was to touch Sasha. The first time he rolled over was reaching out to touch Sasha. You know, that's giving too much credit to the dog, but it's a great experience.
I believe that God just surrounds us with just a love that puts some rest at these patients and gives some comfort to the staff, that if we can give them a little ray of sunshine or just a smile.
I'm not one that thinks about divine plans, and I also slow to recognize them, but as I sit back and reflect a week later after something happens, yeah, there's got to be a reason why all of a sudden I happen to show up one day that I had no reason to be there, or why this person let us go into the room when we didn't. We visited this patient today, and everybody told me he can't move his hands. Today he pet my dog with his one hand.
As we shot this story, waiting outside the hospital door, arranging permissions and signing releases, we were approached independently by several healthcare providers who warned us not to expect much of the injured man inside. Undaunted, Dave and Sasha entered the room.
A man that was injured by a cow, been in the hospital, 6-8 weeks, wasn't having a lot of quick success that he'd hoped to have, and staff cautioned us very much that he has no use of his arms or his legs, and I would need to help him pet the dog, and yet the guy pets the dog. He probably thanked me, 20 times, I bet, for coming. And then he goes on and talks about how, I'm going to start eating now. I'm going to start using my hands more. I can start talking more, and I'm going to start walking. And you know, if you're just a ray of hope for a guy and he can start expressing it because you're there, you know, once again, you know, you just kind of, at least I do, go out with kind of a quiet smile and thank God for the chance to meet him.
These incredible stories are about making connections at a deep, profound level.
Zoey is a people dog. She loves people. But when she's sitting up on the bed with a patient, I can tell immediately if she's connecting with them or not. And she gets comfortable, she relaxes, she's not the little wiggle worm, and she's really connecting with those people.
What Sasha's done is demonstrated how it's all right to cry. You take a person at the end of life, family is crying, and she'll lay there forever and let them touch her and feel her and never move. Now, those same people in a different setting, she might not even let them pet. So, you know, she's willing to share what she brings to the table, which is soft, fluffy hair, a warm heart, a nice smile, and lots of patience.
I think it's their unconditional love. They're not judgmental. They don't care what we look like, what we sound like. If we're good to them, they're just unconditional.
Came from a farm in South Dakota where touching and hugging was allowed, but certainly not a commonplace. Expressing love and affection was certainly done, but not common. To now that I think there's probably two big things that I have learned, and I'm going to say Sasha taught them to me. And one is, a few people remember what you say, more people remember what you do, but most people remember how you make them feel. So it's important to make people feel good.
My name is Blossom. What's yours?
Blossom the Clown was born from a difficult life, steeped in pain and abuse.
Was born at the end of 1945. The eldest daughter, the second child in a family of 7 children. Was challenging to be in a large family, 7 children born in 11 years. And I guess the easiest way to say it is that growing up and the years in my marriage were years that were pretty much ruled by familial abuse and neglect kinds of things, domestic violence in my adult years, which for a time I wasn't so sure that I'd survive. And unlike many women who reached out to their pastors in the early 1980s, who were told to go home and be more peaceful and be more of what he wanted or thought he wanted, my pastor believed what I told him and set me on a path to find my way beyond that. So the message is, to leave is the most dangerous time. So part of the work that I've done in these years is to get the message out that says, you know what, I'm not different, I'm not unique, and I'm not special. There are a whole lot of women out there like me who have come free, who have found their way way past a sleeping bag, a hot plate in one bedroom or one room. What I learned is that as long as there's isolation and you are removed from information, you really don't know that you have other choices and options.
But Ginger Hedstrom did have choices, and in choosing, she discovered power in learning and change and new things, which led her to clowning.
So I decided I would become a clown. the clowns became Blossom, the white-faced clown, and later Auntie Lena, the old Norwegian woman. The clowns began, particularly Lena, began doing the work of bringing the story to women in particular, and in the later years to law enforcement and different audiences, that there are many women like me. Many women get out. Unfortunately, the stories that we know about domestic violence are those of the women who do not get out.
As Ginger engaged Blossom and Lena to help women and men learn about life beyond domestic abuse, she also learned about the long tradition of Christian clowning.
First clowns, Christian clowns, appeared in the cathedrals in Europe in the 12th century, and where they might show up is Easter Sunday. Many of the cathedrals during that period were built with a small door on the side of the altar area. And so the pastor or the priest might have been doing the sermon, and all of a sudden this fool comes out and dances and jumps up and down and then looks out at everybody and goes, "He's not in the tomb. He made it out." And then he dances and he gets excited and he laughs and she laughs, and then boom, off they go. So it's a way of interrupting the way that we normally think about something, giving us a chance to see ourselves and our world in a different way. So in my clowning, I now have it named Interruptions. It is about first having hope, which gives us what we need so that we can reach for help, which allows us hopefully to heal, and then to find our way to a life that allows us joy and laughter and peace along the way.
While it hasn't been an easy journey for Ginger, Blossom and Lena have helped her learn that there is life beyond the pain.
This poem is titled Coloring Outside the Lines. And that's what it feels like when you decide to move from what is into something that is new and different. It goes like this. Coloring outside the lines is scary business. Some days I don't have the courage for it all. On my big, bold days, though, I let my red crayon streak across the line, then swirl my purple and orange, and out there, with it in perfect perfection and freedom, no lines. Coloring outside the lines is lonely, too.
Under benches at the Labyrinths opening, journals capture the sojourner's insights.
In the Labyrinth journal he wrote, "Thank you, Labyrinth, for allowing me to let off steam. It's been a tough few years. I feel relaxed now, at peace."
A labyrinth has a single path. It's a pattern that is 4,000 or 5,000 years old, and it has been found all over the world. As a single path, it winds through a pattern, but always brings you into the center point or the goal without having to make any decisions about wrong turns or dead ends.
She wrote, "Such a great way to connect with ourselves, our Creator, and Mother Earth. It's simply beautiful."
First built the home, my husband used to mow paths through the meadows, meandering sort of paths that sometimes were spirals and sometimes were dead ends, but we would walk those paths just in a meditative sort of way. Then I saw a workshop that talked about using labyrinths as a spiritual tool. There was something very special going on, the way that people were interacting and in their journey, and prayerfully and sometimes tearfully and sometimes joyfully. And so I knew that there was a deeper meaning there. So I came home and built my first labyrinth a few weeks later, started researching them. Sometimes call this the Labyrinth Meadows, because it's 5 acres of rolling meadows, and right now I have 13 walkable labyrinths.
This walk taught me to keep on going in my recovery. Very peaceful. He wrote, "God was in the center, yet also with me as I walked. Not all who wander are lost."
The beauty of the labyrinth is that you can let go of the head part of your walk and move into your body, into your heart. The labyrinth that we're standing in now is a 7-circuit medieval labyrinth because it's circular and it has turns in the quadrants and the half points along the way to the center. The classical labyrinth may be any number of circuits, 3, 7, 15 is the biggest one that I've walked. Design is historical. It might be connected to a certain part of the world or a certain building or cathedral. One of the famous ones is the Chartres labyrinth, which is from the Chartres Cathedral in France. It has some specific design elements that are associated only with that cathedral and that cathedral labyrinth. So although the pattern, the actual path of that labyrinth has been found in other places and in other forms, with all the outside and interior design elements, it's associated specifically with that cathedral.
In the Labyrinth journal, she wrote, "I leave today my fear of security and ask to be blessed with absolute faith and trust that I am and will always be taken care of in the perfect way and time through divine guidance."
The oldest design is one that we call the 7-circuit classical design. It's a design that I have here on the property in stone, and it's a design that has been found all over the world in different places and in societies that didn't necessarily interact with each other. So the origin of the labyrinth is really a mystery. And I think that's part of the interest in the labyrinth, is that we really don't know who built the first one or why. But the same design kept appearing in different places and in different forms around the world. The country that had the most labyrinths in the world was Sweden. Around the coast of the Baltic Sea, there are 400 or 500 stone labyrinths that were built in that classical style. And those were built by fishermen in seasonal fishing communities. And the fishermen would walk those labyrinths before going out to fish as a blessing for good catch, for fair weather. Some of the folklore talks about catching the trolls in the labyrinth and the spirals of the labyrinth, or the winds being caught in the labyrinth so that they wouldn't cause problems for their fishing trip.
To learn more about labyrinths, including where you might find one near you or a portable labyrinth that you can rent, check out these websites. Thanks for joining us on this edition of In Search of the Divine. If you have comments or suggestions for us, visit our website. Until next time, thanks for watching.